India and the European Union, they are on the verge of sealing a landmark free trade agreement. So, this India EU trade deal is also being called the mother of all trades by the officials. So, how transformative is this agreement for India trade strategy compared to the other deals?
See, EU is one of our large export markets, and where we have a positive trade balance in many commodities like agri commodities. And given the current geopolitical situations and the tariffs with the US, sealing this market is deal, and I rightly say mother of all deals to happen. And therefore everybody is looking forward to this day. Be it agriculture, be it services, be it manufacturing, in all the segments, if we are able to have market access export or regulatory compliance agreement with the European Union, it will be amazing for us. And just to add one more point, European Union FTAs are very good stepping stone because they also look at regulatory compliances, addressing regulatory issues like mutual recognition agreements. And you has time bound mutual recognition agreements with many countries. We don't have it. And getting a single market rather than going by country will be a real big thing for us in this trade agreement.
Definitely, ma'am. Ma'am, you mentioned a few sectors right now. So, which sectors in India are the clear winners from this trade deal? And like, are any sectors in India which needs to be cautious if this or if this trade deal gets signed?
See, let me put you what are the sensitive sectors. First of all, what are the sectors which wants to have a trade deal? There are sectors like textile and apparels, gems and jewelries, which would like to have a trade deal, be it with the US or the EU. These are the traditional export-oriented, labor-intensive sectors, and these sectors are suffering a lot because of the problems in the US. So, the sectors that will be really gaining are the labor intensive export oriented sectors like textile and apparels, gems and jewelries, leather and leather products. Of course, we would like to have more market access in pharmaceuticals, in electronics. That depends upon the depth of the deal. In many cases, we can become a manufacturing hub for the European Union companies which are trying to de-risk from China, and that is a big thing that we need to also think through. Regarding sensitivities, we have traditionally few sensitivities which were highlighted from time to time. One is the automobile and auto component. This sector, while it has opened to the UK, they have raised certain concerns with the European Union. Dairy has been sensitive across all FTAs. It is not the European Union FTA, but the bigger problem is this is also a high tax sector, high custom duty sector in India, and it has been opened in a very fragmented manner to other trade partners. For example, GI cheese can be opened up, or high-end chocolates can be opened up, but skim milk or fresh milk can be kept out of the FTA. So, how we maneuver this sector? It is not a total sector block. How we maneuver this sector to protect the domestic companies and to protect and also to allow access will be an interesting thing to see in this trade agreement.
Okay, ma'am, sure, definitely. So my next question is like, how soon, if this agreement is signed, how soon can the exporters expect real gains once it is signed?
See, there is a gap between the signing of the agreement and the implementation of the agreement that you have also seen in case of the UK also signing, agreeing, implementation. All these processes are dependent on many factors, and that needs to be looked into. But at the time, we are at a very tough time, and we are at a tough time because that our trade to the US is suffering. In this current scenario, if the earlier it is, the quicker it is implemented and quicker processes are are being followed. And what kind of tariff phasing out did each side offer to each other is very important for market access on both sides. And also how much of the non-tariff barriers are addressed under this agreement. Because with the European Union, in many cases, the non-tariff barriers or whatever they call it, it may not be non-tariff barriers, but maybe the measures are very important, which what can be discussed within the trade agreement and what cannot be discussed within the trade agreement is a huge confusion among the Indian industry and also policymakers, like whether how much can we go in labor and environmental standards? Can we discuss CBAM? So these non-trade issues are also going to, create a lot of discussion once this agreement is being signed.
Understood, ma'am. You just mentioned about the tariffs. So, do you think can this deal offset an impact of high US tariffs on Indian exports?
Of course, if the tariff is lowered with the European Union, see, many of our competitors either has a GSP or they have a trade agreement with the Europe. Look at the Vietnam. So if we are not able to, if we have to, cushion ourselves from the US, we need an agreement which helps us with tariffs. And European Union doesn't have as much high tariff as us, but they do have high tariff in some of the export interest areas for us. And that is what we are looking at probably in this deal. But by we, I'm not saying me, but any researcher would look at the deal where the export potential lies.
Okay, ma'am. So, will this economic cooperation under the India-UAE CEPA agreement be a major focus during this visit when the EU trade UNFTA agreement happens?
See, basically, at this stage that we stand and the tariff threats, this is a necessity that the deal with the European Union is signed. Although we have signed a deal with Oman and New Zealand, see, basically the volumes of trade are very low. If we really need to enhance the volume of trade and keep our presence, we need bigger markets like the European Union. And if I look at bigger export market, apart from the US, the next is the European Union. So there is an urgency and a strategic need. From the European Union perspective also, if they sign the deal, the EU companies will have a distinct advantage with the American companies. And probably this deal will pressurize the American companies to push for a India deal. So therefore, if this deal goes through, it may be easier and simpler, may not be as complicated to go for a deal with the US, and also easier for us to look at another market. So I think on both sides, and also for the EU as an ally of the US also did not get a good deal. It is not able to do a very good deal with China. The other largest market is India. So there is a need on both sides. There is a geostrategic need on both sides, and this is the right time to actually benefit from the need. There is a lot of hope because of the EU delegate coming in the 26th of January. There is a lot of hope and aspiration, and because both sides have also announced that they have closed the negotiation. So there are two things: they have closed the negotiation. There is a good time for India on 26th of January, which is our Republic Day. In and around that time is also a very strategic way to announce the deal.
Yes, ma'am, definitely. So, in the beginning of the this interview, you mentioned about the energy and defense sector. So, how could this visit impact energy, defense, and security cooperation between the two countries?
See, European Union trade agreements do have, while defense comes in and all of that, defense is also very much a part of government procurement, where the government tend to reserve the right to do what they want to do. So I don't think defense, like if you look at the UK deal also, India kept defense out of government procurement. I don't think that, both sides will bring in defense that badly into the deal. Of course, that are always discussed on the sideline of the deals. Now, within the deal and the trade, when you look at trade, then within the trade in defense is not particularly covered in trade agreements. If I put it, it is only the US which is trying to club defense and trade agreement, but generally trade agreements do not cover defense. Maybe one big miss of the EU agreement is EU in the recent years is keeping investment out of the trade agreements and are doing a different investment agreement. So a big out of this agreement may be investment. If you look at EU's recent trade agreement. Now, if you look at energy, with EU, we have a lot of synergy in energy, especially in renewable energies. And if you look at India's investment in the European Union and European Union partnerships in India, you will see those partnerships are very, very strong. And as European Union is trying to move out of China in terms of its energy security in renewable, I think India offers a good opportunity for collaborations because companies are already here. Green technology, green energy cooperation between India and EU are happening at the different levels, and they are always, the industry has been very, very happy and forthcoming with that collaboration. So I don't think that is going to be a major issue.
Okay, ma'am. So my next question is, will this FTA truly reduce India's dependence on like few key export markets?
To a certain extent, but not, because European Union is not a new market for us. The European Union is just it is just a market that was always a big market for us. Okay, so US was always a big market, EU was always a big market. It may reduce the dependence on US a little bit, but it will not lead to a market diversification. Market diversification happens when you find new markets. Maybe you explore new markets in Africa, new markets in Latin America, new markets in Central Asia, then the diversification happens. EU as an existing market is already a big export market for us. Where it will help us is probably in some areas, like I said, where the other competing countries have a trade agreement, they have a better level playing field, like Vietnam with the EU. That level playing field may be given to us. That is where your benefit lies under the particular situation.
Okay, ma'am. So this would be my last question. What major challenges still remain, especially on the carbon tax and regulations? Like, what are the major challenges that like still India has to sort out?
When you trade with the European Union, there are two types of things. One is certain things that you can address in the trade agreement. You can address a tariff in the trade agreement. You can do recognition to address regulatory issues or reduce. I am not talking about regulatory issues. Both sides can actually harmonize the standard to the extent that they kind of agree on each other's maybe testing procedures, maybe certification procedures. So these are the kind of things you address in the trade agreement. You really cannot address carbon border tax in the trade agreement because it is a unilateral measure. It applies to countries with whom European Union does not have a trade agreement. So it is a natural process. Or EUDR, deforestation directive. You can question the directive from the content of the directive, but there are these are issues that cannot be addressed in the trade agreement. Now, what do the trade agreement do then? Now, let me explain to you what the trade agreement will do and what is the impact. Let us go to carbon border tax on steel. Our bigger companies exporting to the European Union have already said that they have started their process of compliance. Smaller SMEs are worried, but there is need for more capacity building, training, cooperation, and this can be embedded into as a part of the FTA. Now come to new regulations that may come or likely to come in the future, which are broader than the carbon border tax or broader than the e-forestation directive, like the European Union due diligence directive. We are doing a lot of work in this area, and we found that in the labor standards, international labor standards, and the environmental standards that European Union are talking about are, most of them India is a signatory to. Of course, India may not be a signatory to some, like ILO standards on forming association. We are not a signatory to that. But all European Union member countries are not signatory to all ILO regulations. So the kind of worries that we put and the kind of wording that is there in the trade agreement is very different. The wording in the trade agreement is, if you have to follow decent work, and if you are a signatory, you have to maintain that. The same kind of a wording are also in our 4 occupational code. The due diligence is also the SEBI guidelines for top companies. However, maybe our MSMEs, and that's very true, it's not a maybe, it's a fact that our MSMEs may not be compliant. They need capacity building. So we need to work with the European Union to see how that capacity building comes in, because the directive itself says that the EU companies sourcing should actually support the MSMEs in the supply chain. While it talks about that, is the support happening? So that we can create a pathway for cooperation, capacity building, and support to the MSMEs to actually make trade more gender equitable. So those kind of issues can also benefit us. It is a major benefit to India also. We always thought about environmental labor standards being a bad thing for us, but it is not. If we are able to prove that we are not doing deforestation of coffee as much as Brazil has done, which is a fact, our coffee production lands have not increased after 2020, then that is a good thing. India can become a major player if we are able to understand the requirement and we are able to prove the requirement. And in some cases, the requirement can be very silly. And for example, in tobacco, if the due diligence apply, then is tobacco smoking is bad. That's the concept. If you smoke tobacco, you have cancer. That's the WTO concept. Now, if you smoke tobacco, you have cancer. And if you smoke tobacco, which is grown sustainably in less MRL, will it be good? That's the question that the directive needs to think through. And how do you measure? What are the guidelines? Can the audit be in India? I think the audit being in India is a major thing that India needs to push in the trade agreement. Because if the audit happens in European Union and they come and they visit, and with the, in rupee falling, the cost of bringing somebody for your audit, making them stay, following, is a very, very high cost process of compliance. But if the audit is happening in India and they are approving our audit, I think that is a good process. In terms of regulation, I think India is very good in terms of regulations. In terms of labor laws, the 4 occupational codes are very good. If the states implement them, that is amazing. So this is an internal problem to India, not a European Union problem per se. But having said that, we are not in a very, very difficult scenario to export. Those who are exporting are already meeting the compliance requirement. So therefore, we have a age-old, history that we are exporting, because it is still one of the largest export markets that we have. So we are able to do the compliance. So we should go with effort to reduce the cost and to do regulatory cooperations, look at the reduction in tariffs, understand the procedural and processes, look at acceptability of Indian audits for labor standards, environmental standards, social standards. That will help us to reduce the cost.